perfectly pure phenomenal existence, to all who dwell in the auspicious realms of the 10 directions, the Buddhas, Dharma, and assemblies of the noble Sangha, I prostrate and pray that all may be auspicious for myself and all others. To Drome, Gyalpo, Tselten, Dundrugong, Jampe Genpel, Gedrak Peldampa, Kunla Gongpa, Gyachir, Trakpa Chen, Lumpo Tarpa, Seldrak Pel, and Ni. Noble ones, known for your consideration of all sentient beings. Noble ones, known for your superior display of enlightened activities that grant mental satisfaction. Merely hearing your names increases all glory and auspiciousness. I prostrate to the 8 Sugatas, to the youthful Manjushri, the glorious Vajra holder, the powerful Avalokiteshvara, the noble protector Maitreya, Sai Ningpo, Tipao Namparcel, Namke Ningpo, the supreme noble Kuntuzangpo, Utpel Dorje, Pekar Lushing, and Norbu Dawa, Reldri Nima, holders of the excellent hand emblems of supreme noble good fortune, I prostrate to the 8 Bodhisattvas, the supreme jeweled umbrella, the auspicious golden fish, the wish-fulfilling vase, the mind-pleasing Kamala flower, the conch of fame and glory, the fully endowed endless knot, the eternal victory banner, the all-powerful wheel, you who hold these 8 supreme precious signs, offered to the conquerors of all directions and times. Attractive maidens of pleasure, to recall your nature increases all that is noble. I prostrate to the 8 goddesses of good fortune, Sangpa Chempo, Dejum, Semeu, Mikton Den, and Gyalpo Yulkor Sung, Pakyepo and Luwang, Mikmizang, Namtu Se and Hadze Korlo, holders of the trident, short spear, and Vajra, Fina, sword, stupa, and banner of victory, who make auspiciousness and positivity grow in 3 realms. I prostrate to the 8 guardians of the world, concerning the activity that myself and others are about to begin, by pacifying all obstructions and unwanted harm. May the noble and meaningful increase and all wishes be accomplished. May good fortune, happiness, and prosperity be fully endowed. Let's do it one time in Tibetan. Om Nang Zi Nam Da Ran Jin Ngondro Be Ta Shi Che Chi Jing Na Ju Bai Sangye Che Dang Gen Dun Pa Pe Zo Kun La Cha Tse Da Cha Ta Shi Sho Drome Gelbo Tse Ten Dun Dro Gong Jampe Genpa Gedra Pel Damba Kun La Gomba Gyache Draba Jim Lumbo Tarpa Tse Da Pel Dang Ni Sem Chen Tam Che La Gunda Pepe Itsim Ze Pa Tse Ra Tra Pe Tsen Sam Tu Pe Ta Shi Pe Pe Wa Dewa She Pa Ge La Cha Ze Lo Jampe Jonu Pel Den Dor Je Zim Chen Re Zi Wang Gombo Jampe Per Sa Yi Nimpo Ti Pa Nam Par Se Nam Ke Ningpo Pa Cho Kun Tu Zang Ut Pel Dorje Pekar Lu Jing Dang Nor Buddha Wa Redi Ni Mai Cha Zen Le Nam Ta Shi Pe Gi Cho Chang Chu Sem Pa Ge La Cha Se Lo Rin Shen Du Cho Ta Shi Se Gi Nya Du Jum Bum Zang I Rong Ka Ma La Niendra dundam punso pelbeu. Minu gyalzen wangyur kolote. Rinchen tacho gyegi takshin sin. Chodu gyewa chu chin ge ma. Ge so ngo wo den pe we. Tashi lamo ge la cha se lo. Samba de jo te jun se me u. Mik ton den dan ge bo yo ko sung. Pa ke po dan lu wang mik mi zang. Nam tu se te la je ko lo tang. Tri shu la dang dun tun dor je chen. Pi wam re ji chu ten gyat sen zin. Sa sum ne su ge le ta shi pe. Ji ten kyon wa ge la cha se lo. Ta cha den de cha wa tsum pa la. Ge dan ye wa che wa gun shi ne. De dun pe sam dun yi jin ru. Ta shi de le pun sun so pa shu. And we'll do the 7-line prayer. Some people have that separately, or it's also the next page in this book. Ogin yugi nub jang zang pe ma ge za dom bo la yam zen jogi ngondro ne pe ma jung ne jesu cha ko du kandro mambu ko ke gi jesu da dru ki jingi lo jir jesu so guru pe ma si di Ogin yugi nub jang sang pe ma ge za dom bo la yam zen jogi ngondro ne pe ma jung ne jesu tra ko du kandro mambu ko ke gi jesu da dru ki jingi lo she su so guru pe ma si di Orgin yugi no jang sang pe ma ge sa dong bo la yam zin jogi Ngondro nye pe ma jung ne je su tra ko du Ngondro mam bu ko ge gi je su ta dru ki jing gi lo ji shik su so guru pe ma si di Belden Zoe Lama Rimbuji Dagi Jiwar Beme Denjula Kadin Jimbo Go Neji Ziku Tuntugi Ngodu Zeldu So Simsin Nangi Sembanam Lo Ichi Dachita Wa Chichun Tumontebi Chugi Golo Gordo So Welcome, everybody. I see familiar faces, old friends, and new faces I don't recognize. Just to help me help you, how many people in the group today have never done a Ngondro before? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And how many people have actually not only done an Ngondro, but done a bunch of accumulations already? So we've got a broad range in our group. First, before I go on with the Ngondro, I wanted to mention one thing. We started with these prayers. I'll say more about the 7-line prayer this afternoon. That first prayer is a treasure of Mipam Rinpoche. It's based on the speech of the Buddha himself. And it seems a little odd in this translation. You think about maidens of pleasure. That's actually a reference to the outer elements, the outer universe, arising as the pure form of the mandala. So there's 8 and 8 and 8. The 8 Buddhas are the 8-fold consciousness, and the 8 Bodhisattvas are the objects of the consciousness, and so forth. I taught on that a year ago, I think, and we actually have another translation where the language is not quite so archaic, but just the interdependence of that, the speech of the Buddha and the treasure of Mipam Rinpoche, it's a prayer that we often use to create auspiciousness and invoke the pure mandala. Even if we don't intellectually understand what's going on, it's a way of reminding ourselves that what seems like a very impure world is a pure mandala. And that's a fundamental principle of the Vajrayana. So with the Ngondro, Ngondro means preliminaries, what goes before. And in one way, it's a very simple, accurate name. The Ngondro is in some ways the doorway to Vajrayana, to tantric practice. But it's also not just what goes before. It's really the whole thing. The whole thing is there in the Ngondro. So some people hear Ngondro and think, well, this is kind of like a, SAT prep course or something. I need to get through this. I need to count the numbers, and then I'm ready for Vajrayana. But it's much more than that. The little blurb we wrote up for this teaching described it as indispensable. And when we say the Ngondro is indispensable, we don't necessarily mean that you have to do this many numbers or read this particular practice every day. But what's in the Ngondro is what's absolutely indispensable for Vajrayana practice. And I'll talk about that a little more today. Now, it's traditional at the beginning of any Buddhist teaching to give a little teaching on how to receive the teaching. And if you've read some of the commentaries on the Ngondro, we have one book I'll be referring to this weekend and next weekend here is Dudjom Rinpoche's long commentary on the Ngondro. And there's also Patra Rinpoche's Words of My Perfect Teacher. And they start with all sorts of lists of 3 defects of the pot and 4 assumptions and 6 stains. And it is good in a disciplined way to train ourselves in that. We come from a tradition where people memorize these kinds of things and drill it into themselves. But really the essence of all of that is to take a good hard look at our own minds. And that's really the beginning. It's the beginning of any genuine spiritual practice, any genuine spiritual path. Not just embarking on a long journey, but when we begin every day, when we sit down and begin a session, particularly when we come to a teaching, we need to look at our minds in an honest way. And we need to look at our motivation. And we could have all kinds of motivation for coming and spending our Sunday morning here. Some motivations would be better than others. The best motivation would be if we really were deeply moved by the suffering of sentient beings and saw that in order to benefit them and in order to free ourselves from suffering, the only way is to first realize the nature of our own minds, to attain the Buddhist state in order to truly liberate beings from samsara. That's the best motivation. If not that, at least we should have some sense of what we call ngejung in Tibetan. And this is a word that's translated as renunciation. Unfortunately, nge means certainty and jung means arising. And the Buddha taught there's 2 kinds of certainty that have to arise to set out on the spiritual path. The first is certainty about the defects of samsara. So, I'm sure everyone in this room does everyone understands the word more or less, samsara, what I'm referring to, or if anybody wants a little more explanation. So, samsara is a Sanskrit word, and it means wandering around. In Tibetan it's translated as korwa, circling around, or sometimes translated as cyclic existence. And what this refers to is the kind of existential dilemma that we face. That is, in this life, we're stuck with delusion and suffering. And we'll talk a little bit more about what suffering means. Unsatisfactoriness is in some ways a better word. Something doesn't work. These brief moments of happiness give way to more problems. And then we die. And then we're reborn in a similar predicament over and over again. Sometimes it seems better, but then when our merit is used up, we fall down. So this idea of being trapped in a situation that's completely messed up is samsara. And sometimes people... So these are very traditional metaphors. At the beginning, it may just be an inkling, that kind of certainty, just enough to explore what's going on. But with the Ngondro, we need to bring it deeper into our bones, and we'll talk about that today, and we'll talk about that next weekend. What's wrong? What's messed up? But if you don't have certainty that this situation that you're caught in, this wandering around from one lifetime to another, from one day to another in this lifetime, from one moment to another, is fundamentally messed up, then why? Why engage in spiritual practice? Earn a lot of money, go play. The Buddha said, the sensual pleasures of this life are extraordinary. If it wasn't for impermanence, I would enjoy them endlessly. We have these moments that seem really great. What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is that we don't want to let go of it. And it's changing. It's always changing. And we have to let go. So anyway, that's a little bit about samsara. But there's two kinds of certainty you have to give rise to begin the spiritual path. The second kind of certainty is certainty of liberation. And this is why this translation, renunciation, just doesn't get it. And also renunciation is like, I have an intention, I announce my intention, I make a commitment. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about confidence, feeling it in your bones that this situation is really messed up, but also tasting it, feeling it in your bones, that there is a possibility of liberation. Otherwise, it's really depressing. When I was a monk for 6 years, and I remember when I first came back to the States after taking my vows in India, a very close family member, at one point, a lot of people were upset. At one point told me, Buddhism is just so nihilistic and life-denying. They're talking about emptiness, and you're giving up this, and you're giving up that. And I thought for a moment, and I said, you ever seen a picture of the Dalai Lama when he's not smiling? Have you ever seen a picture of a Buddhist? Most of the time you see a Buddhist monk, they're smiling. And there's something about the Buddha's teaching that's just so opposite from everything else in life. Opposite from everything we've been taught by our teachers, by our parents. Opposite of the first thing we did when we came out of our mother's womb into this world is we gasped for breath. We grabbed something. If you have a body, this is your condition, to try to grab things and hold on to them. And we grabbed for that nipple and that food. And the entire life is about grabbing, holding, getting, taking. And what the Buddha discovered is that it never works. It never works. Very temporary illusion of success. And this is the example of the Buddha's life story. He had it all and he walked away because he saw birth, old age, sickness, death, impermanence. And that even when we are enjoying ourselves, we're accumulating karma, which becomes the causes for suffering in the future. So it's like credit card debt. I mean, can you imagine you got $10,000 of credit card debt and you decide, I'm going on vacation. And I mean, who can do that, right? If you had $10,000 of credit card debt and you go spend 2 weeks on the Riviera, racking it up, I mean, if you could, would you really be enjoying yourself? We would look at somebody who did that as absolutely insane, right? But we're all doing that. That's what we're doing. We've got all this karma that's going to propel us from one unsatisfactory situation to the next, over and over again. And we just keep building up the credit card debt. So anyway, that's samsara. But nirvana is the possibility of being debt-free. You know, if you just, the secret, the magic of the Buddha's teaching is if you just leave it be, if you let go, it's all perfect, it's all there. We have that basic goodness inside us. We have everything. It's all there. The ultimate happiness. You've just got to give up. And it's so hard to do. So, but you at least, the beginning of the spiritual path is at least getting a taste of this twofold certainty. A taste. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be here. No way. You'd be wasting your Sunday morning listening to me. If you didn't have a taste of that. But what we do with the Ngondro is we really get it. We really train in it to understand it and to feel it and to live it. That's the beginning. That's the first part of the Ngondro. So, where were we? So the second motivation, the not quite as good motivation, would be, I want to get out of this mess. And then there's another motivation, which is considered the inferior motivation, which is, I'm really miserable and I want to feel happy in this lifetime. So we talk about three kinds of individuals who undertake this spiritual path. The first kind of individual is someone who is just seeking happiness for this lifetime. Or perhaps, when we refer to the ancient Indian traditions, the Brahmin traditions, to be reborn in a positive life in the future. But not to get out of the mess completely, get out of samsara. Better motivation to get oneself out of the mess. Best motivation to get everyone out of the mess. We all have all of these motivations. The neat thing about this tradition, the 1, 2, 3, and this and that, if you memorize it, we're actually training in all of this. There are moments when we taste that bodhicitta of the bodhisattva, because it's inside us. It's our basic goodness coming out, our Buddha nature. You say Buddha nature, basic goodness, basic sanity, and all these different Sanskrit words, pristine awareness, primal knowing. Us, who you are. And sometimes we taste that a little bit and it comes out of us, but we got to train. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes we're just drawn to Dharma because we're miserable. Things just aren't working, and we get inspired. That's good, but it's not good enough. We need to use that inspiration and really inspire ourselves more. Use our intellect and analyze and inspire ourselves more to make our motivation better. And based on your motivation, that's what you're going to get. Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche once gave a teaching. He said, and he's teaching to Tibetan people, not to Westerners. He says, so many people say, oh, those great lamas, those reincarnate lamas, those great beings, they can get enlightened, but we're ordinary people, we can't. He said, there is no more negative action than having a thought like that. It's more negative than killing someone to have a thought like that. Because if you have that thought, you will never get free. And if you have that thought, it's like you're saying the Buddha's a liar, your teacher's a liar, the whole thing's a waste of your time. I wasted my time coming from Vermont. You know? So why are you here? I'm here because you can do it. And so we need to remember that. We need to inspire ourselves, but we also need to take an honest look at our own minds. What's going on? And not just setting out on the spiritual path, but we come to a teaching like this. So the more we can purify our motivation, we make ourselves open. This teaching about the three kinds of pot, the three containers to prepare yourself for a teaching. If the pot is turned over, nothing's going to come into it. And usually what keeps the pot upside down is pride. Oh, I know. Then why come? And then there's the pot that's open, but it's got holes in the bottom. Things go in, things go out. Distraction, right? Lack of discipline. That also comes from our intention, how motivated we are. And then the third defect of the pot, the third possible problem is there's some kind of poison in there. And we all have poisons. And that's why we go through all these rituals at the beginning of Buddhist teaching. This is a tradition, it goes way, 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 way back. It's not like, you know, we just cooked this up for you recently. Whatever your motivation, you came in here and you prayed to the Buddha and the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and you did the 7-line prayer. You didn't waste your time. On top of that, if we go through if we make the discipline, looking at our own minds, developing a motivation. What is my motivation for being here? Is it because I just wanted to get out of the house this morning? Is it because I feel lousy and I wanted to meet my friends and hang out with my friends? Or I really liked here, in this case, because I'm the teacher here, this probably wouldn't be the case, but sometimes, like when Rinpoche is here, I really feel inspired by that teacher. I want to see him again, or I really, feel good in his presence. But all of those things are kind of good. They're pulling you in the right direction. We need to consciously work on having the best motivation we can when we come to a Dharma teaching. If you see people who are old Dharma practitioners who've had lots and lots and lots and lots of teachings, but they come into the teaching and they have so much deference and they open themselves. Because even though they've heard it 10 times, they've heard it 20 times, it's a practice. It's an opportunity to get it deeper and to purify our minds. So the teaching is a practice, and that's why we go through this formal, ritualized thing. So the Ngondro, it's the preliminaries. It's not indispensable in the sense that you can do Vajrayana practice without doing a Ngondro? Sure. But as I said before, that requires having what's in the Ngondro. And that's not so easy. If you had the kind of close relationship with a truly realized master who was very skillful, and you were around that person a lot, and you could ask them questions, and they could get in your life, and you were really devoted, sure. You know, we know these stories about the great Indian siddhas of the past where the master just says something or whacks the disciple on the head with a sandal, or, you know, it seems like there's no dharma happening. But we don't have that much merit. And we're very fortunate we've got Chögyam Rinpoche, but he's in India a lot, and he's available as much as he can be. And that's often the situation in Asia, too. And so the Ngondro is a system that's been very carefully put together over centuries. And some people, in particular situations with a particular teacher, they won't do a Ngondro. And if somebody's not doing a Ngondro, you shouldn't think, oh, they did it wrong. But the Ngondro is just this wonderful practice that helps us in many ways. It helps us develop this twofold certainty. It helps us develop our compassion, our bodhicitta, every day. Sogyam Rinpoche does the Ngondro every day. There are different Ngondros. There's shorter ones, there's longer ones, but they all have a similar structure because everything is there that at the beginning sort of grinds down our stubbornness and pride and ego tripping, and also fills us up, inspires us, and but it just keeps going. The key elements of the Dharma, all of it, it's in the Ngondro, everything. So if we can study sutras and tantras and shastras, and we can, learn philosophy, and we can know all the detailed commentaries on the tantras and do this practice and that practice, in one way it's great. But very few people can do that and get to the point. Whereas in Ngondro, we can do it and we can get to the point. And so many practitioners, just by doing Ngondro, they attain very high levels of attainment, complete attainment, realization. I know people who just did this short Dujam Tirsar Ngondro, the really short one, as their only practice their whole life, who very high level of realization, sat in meditation when they died for days, amazing signs. Nothing else. And there's a lot of people who try to learn this and learn that and learn this and learn that and learn this, and at the end, kind of empty-handed. So we should feel really fortunate and really appreciate what a precious practice this is, and not think, oh, well, it's just kind of like something I got to get through, and it's so simple and short, there can't be much there, and I heard there's some lamas coming and giving that teaching and some. Now, on top of that, we have this wonderful short Ngondro practice from Dujam Rinpoche, which is so blessed and so short and easy to do. And I think that's Dujam Rinpoche's picture up there just to the right of the Buddha. This is his commentary on the longer version of the Ngondro. And every time I look at this book, I just, I feel his kindness. And he wrote this commentary back in the 1940s in Tibet, before everything fell apart in Tibet. And the short Ngondro is actually a pure vision of his previous incarnation, but he just sort of cleaned up the subject headings. It's so kind. I mean, if you look at the it's the shortest Ngondro out there. But he knew what kind of situation we'd be stuck in. It's short, but everything's there, and the blessings are there. The lineage is short. I mean, Dudjom Rinpoche was Chogyam Rinpoche's teacher. And Chogyam Rinpoche spent 7 years in Kathmandu with Dudjom Rinpoche, which is unusual. Dudjom Rinpoche had so busy, he had so many high masters coming from all over Asia and people from all over the world to see him. So Chogyam Rinpoche spent 4 years every day sitting next to Dudjom Rinpoche from 7 in the morning to 7 at night as one of his main attendants. Got everything, and then did 3-year retreat under his direction in Kathmandu. So he was very close to Dudjom Rinpoche. You have a very close lineage of blessing. Very close. So this is really a wonderful practice. It's really a wonderful practice. And this commentary by Dudjom Rinpoche goes into great detail, much more detail than I can give you this weekend, next weekend. This is the commentary on the longer version of the Ngondro. But all of the visualizations apply exactly to the shorter version with slight variation. The order of the Vajrasattva practice and the mandala practice is reversed. And in the Vajrasattva practice, there's 2 stages in the long Ngondro, and you only need to do 1 stage in the short Ngondro. But that's not a big deal. You've got all the resources here for A, what things mean, and B, the visualizations in great detail. And when you think about starting a Ngondro, I know for people from our culture, it can be really intimidating to sit down and you're being told you should read this and you should visualize this and you should do this, and we want to do it right. And we don't want to mess up. And so we just stop ourselves. And it's kind of like riding a bike. You just have to get on the bike and do it. Like the Tibetans do this stuff, and a lot of times they don't even know what the words mean. Like the Lama gave it to them, and they have devotion and they do it. And slowly, slowly, it opens up for you and you understand. And that's okay. Just like your motivation. If we really look at our mind, you and me, I'm supposed to have a good motivation too. It's supposed to be easier for me than you. I've been doing this for a long time. But I think if we all look at our minds, do we really have a perfect bodhicitta motivation here today? We have mixed motivation. But we still come and we do it and we do our best and we make our mind the best we can. It's called practice, right? And actually this word that we translate as practice, in English, nyamlen in Tibetan means taking the experience in, taking it in. So there's a difference in Dharma, in our lineage, it's about nyamlen, taking it in, making it a way of life. And this is contrasted to studying, learning, understanding. You need enough studying, learning, understanding to take it in and make it a way of life. But studying and learning and understanding for its own sake isn't going to help you when you die. When you die, your conceptual consciousness is going to dissolve. So all these ideas aren't going to help you. What we're doing in Vajrayana practice is training ourselves to go deeper than that busy conceptual mind. There is something Vajra, indestructible down there, the Buddha nature. And this is about, first we taste it, and eventually we live it. Nyamlen, we take it in, we make it our way of life. And so, really, if you do the Ngondro and you meditate, it's a complete path. It's all there. And if you have time and energy and interest and some kind of karmic connection, there's this vast ocean of practices. And that's just about what inspires you. But for most people, particularly in our situation, in our time and place, keep it simple. And don't think, I'm going to do the Ngondro and get those numbers done so I can do the next practice and the next practice and the next practice. Because even if you do the next practice, you'll still be doing your Ngondro. You're not going to stop. And it's about changing ourselves. The numbers don't really matter, except that, it's sort of like there have been scientific studies. Well, there have been a lot of trials for centuries, and if you do a few 100,000, something happens to you. So that's why these numbers are there, to create a little discipline and to inspire us to push ourselves. But if we just play the numbers game, that's also not good. One of the things Dudjom Rinpoche did in this commentary is very interesting if you compare this commentary with Words of My Perfect Teacher, Patrul Rinpoche's commentary on the Longchen Nyingtik Ngondro. Patrul Rinpoche puts the chapter on how to follow a spiritual teacher, chapter 6, and it's pretty short. Dudjom Rinpoche makes it chapter 1, and it's much longer. And when I saw that, he knew. He knew we're in a very different culture than the ancient Tibetan culture that this comes out of. And so we have to really think about what we're doing. The relationship with the Guru is really the essence of the Vajrayana path. And if that's not understood and dealt with appropriately, then you're wasting your time, or worse, you're getting yourself in a lot of trouble. And this, we live in a world where true religion is a $300 pair of blue jeans, and Guru is somebody who comes on TV on Sunday and says something about the president. So Guru has kind of become a bad word, and in a lot of ways. But the Guru principle, it's the essence of the Vajrayana. And I think we really need to think about that and understand that going in. So, Buddha Shakyamuni came. So many great Tibetan Indian masters, so many great Tibetan masters. We didn't meet them. But somehow, we met someone who holds that lineage and developed themselves in it to the point where they can wake us up. And that's the guru. We talk about an outer guru, an inner guru, and a secret guru. That's the outer guru. The whole thing is about waking up, right? It's completely messed up. But if we wake up, it's not. You know, old Zen phrase, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Nothing changes and everything changes. So, that's what it's about. That's what the relationship with the guru is about, waking up. So the outer guru is this person. The inner guru, there are different ways to explain the inner guru. But the easiest way to explain it is the inner guru is, in this case, we can think of when we do our guru yoga, we visualize Guru Padmasambhava. Guru Padmasambhava becomes the inner guru. The inner guru is actually the manifestation of Buddha nature, and the secret guru is the Buddha nature itself. The pure manifestation is the inner guru. So depending on what practice, if we're trauma practitioners, it could be trauma, or Pagmo, or Kuntuzangmo. Or if we're Vajrakalaya practitioners, it could be Vajrakalaya. Here we're doing the Ngondro, and Guru Padmasambhava really embodies all of the devatas of tantric practice, the Lama, the gurus, the yidams, the dakinis. I'm probably using a lot of words that some people don't know. So, the Vajrayana principle, the tantric principle. Tantra means continuum. This indestructible Buddha nature is the only thing that's continuous. Everything else, and I'm John. I think John's continuous. But if I examine, I look for the John, I'm not going to find it, right? It's an illusion. It's an illusion projected onto a fleeting series of contingent events, all of which are changing, and all of which, even if you think they're connected with each other under analysis, they're not there. You see, I gave you the whole Madhyamaka in 2 sentences. But that indestructible, continuous nature, it has no characteristics, and yet everything manifests from that. When that manifestation is experienced in a pure way, we experience ourselves and all other sentient beings as Buddha form. Vajrasattva, Tara, Avalokiteshvara, countless, infinite forms of Buddha form, Dakas and Dakinis. But when we experience it in an impure way, then we experience this. This is actually a pretty good impure perception compared to some impure perceptions. Like all of samsara, the different states of being in this completely messed up, unsatisfactory trap, are a different misperception of this pure form. Hell realms, hungry ghost realms, animal realms, human realms, jealous gods. Actually, God is not a good word, but we say asuras and devas. Whether they're pleasant experiences or unpleasant experiences, it's a projection. Just like this experience is a projection. It's not experiencing the pure, the infinite original purity of everything, and instead turning it into samsara, messing it up. What messes it up? Fixation. We fixate, and all of a sudden there's an object. On the basis of the object, there's a subject. Then there's that and me. And self and other, distance, dualism. Game over. It has a lot of different flavors. If we've all experienced this. I'm sure everyone in this room, we wouldn't want to admit it to anybody else. But we've had moments where we were so angry and frustrated and uptight and tense that even when someone who really loved us was trying to help us and say nice things to us, we heard that as something attacking us, right? That's a hell realm. You understand that? People understand that projection? We have so much tension and aggression that whatever comes at us, even if it's trying to help us, good, loving, we don't experience it that way. We experience it as an attack. That's the hell realms. But take it to several orders of magnitude. Or imagine, being so hungry. We don't have to imagine. Think of a drug addict. They need that fix so badly. They need it, 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 they need it. They can't think of anything else. That's a hungry ghost realm. And this thing, thank you, Simon, because I forgot to turn mine off. And I will now. I appreciate it. But this thing turns us all into hungry ghosts. Like, we just have to. I'm just as bad as anybody. You just have to keep going back to it, right? You can't stop. That's the hungry ghost realm. And if you're thinking, oh, well, he's just sort of trying to cover over this old, archaic, medieval way of looking at things so he can make it sort of psychological and easy for us to swallow as Westerners. No. This is what it means. And this is what happens. This is how you take a form in another, after you die and your consciousness leaves this body, your karma is going to ripen. And what we're experiencing now, the ripening of our karma, it's about these habits, these latent propensities, bakchak, subtle habits. Then there's critical moments in life, like you had a chance to get married and you hesitated and you lost the chance. That person's gone, right? So there's critical moments, and these moments right after you die, or just before you die, they're very powerful. And so all of this stuff comes, and then it manifests, and then it has to work itself out in another life before you get another chance. So the Buddha himself said, this description of the 6 realms of existence is a model. The range of mind is infinite. Wherever there is space, there are beings. Wherever there is space, there's consciousness. Wherever there's consciousness, there are beings. All this space, we don't see it, but there's all kinds of consciousness here experiencing in a different way. And you could have a lake, and we would see it as water, and a deva would see it as ambrosia, and a hell being would see it as like molten iron, and a hungry ghost would see it as pus and blood. And that is a little metaphorical, because it's like, how do we know what a dog really sees or a fly really sees, right? We're trapped in this dimension of our own dualistic projection. We can only use metaphors to try to get around it, to point at that. So when you read these old commentaries into the hell realms and the ones with the lines and the cutting and the cracking blisters and all of this, it's easy to dismiss that as a kind of very simplistic medieval catechism. But it's not. It's based on a very, very sophisticated understanding of psychology and who we are and what we are. And it becomes a system of training. When we train in this stuff, then our minds change. And it also comes from a different kind of culture. Ancient Indian culture, Tibetan culture, they really prize what comes from the past. And something new is suspect. It's the opposite for us. Before we even know what things are, we want to change them. So due to their conservatism, we're very fortunate. We have the Buddha's teachings in a living, vibrant form. But part of that is all these lists. And so, the Buddha gave a list of 6. The Buddha talked about 18 hell realms. The Buddha talked about, so the Buddha, and it was written down in the Indian commentaries, and the Tibetans wrote it down the same way. He could have said 12. He could have said 23. But he did 18, so we do 18. But you shouldn't get hung up on these archaic forms that the knowledge comes in and think that somehow it's not sophisticated. It's not, we have to be sophisticated enough to understand the idiom it's being presented to us in. And we also, I think, to really be good I almost use the word consumers, but it's not a good word. To take the Buddha Dharma into our lives, we need to generate enough humility to set down some of our cultural preconceptions about how knowledge is transmitted and open up a little bit and be willing to not understand, or something seems strange, and just let it be that way for a while and work with it and understand that stuff that seems simplistic and kind of off-putting, there's something underneath there. There's a meaning. And so the Ngondro is a system that's been developed over centuries for training ourselves, and it works. So even if you can't, see your guru every day, even if you can't give up everything and just devote yourself to study and practice and whatever, if you can get this practice, it's a system that works, and it will keep you from going off track, and it will keep you going forward. And it has all the indispensable elements of the Buddhist path in there. And that's why virtually every old Dharma practitioner that I know, and virtually every Lama I know, does a Ngondro every day. Can't imagine not doing the Ngondro every day. Let's take some questions, maybe, and then I'll try to remember to finish talking about the Guru. Anybody have questions? Should I take a break, or should we just go through to noon? Does anybody need a bathroom break? Let's take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break.
Okay, Lama. This is a half question, half observation. Many, many, many years ago, the first Lama with whom I did an Ngondro did teach the realms in a psychologized way, rather than in the kind of literal way that we read in Patrul Rinpoche's Words of My Perfect Teacher. And that's not to say he dismissed rebirth and the fact that people would be reborn in a way that their projection or their experience mirrored the karmic momentum that they had accumulated. But now, for the past 20, almost 30 years, I've had more traditional teachers who rely on those kinds of descriptions much more. And I don't know if you're aware, an old friend of mine, Sam Burkholz, he and his wife Hazel started Shambhala Publications, and he just wrote a book that came out called A Guided Journey to Hell. Have you seen it?
No.
It's a graphic comic. It's pretty cool, but... And he's a student of Tenley Norbu, or was a student of Tenley Norbu, and he supposedly died and was guided by, I think, an emanation of Tara through the various realms, pretty much as described in Patrul Rinpoche's book. It was very literal. So here's my problem. Here's where I kind of pull back, is first of all, there's something really lurid about it. It's almost like cartoony kind of descriptions. But the other thing is that it's not very nuanced. So for example, take something like the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, there are people who commit adultery because they're basically misogynist and they have this narcissistic urge to punish the women they're with, and they go around and have affairs. That's one kind of adultery. Another kind is, say, someone who's been caring for someone with Alzheimer's for 10 years and finds some comfort and love with someone else. They're committing adultery too. But the difference in terms of intention and motivation is vast. And so, like in reading Words of My Perfect Teacher and then having just seen Sam's book, for example, he's guided to the place where those who have the horrible, misguided, almost demonically possessed impulse to commit suicide go, And again, there's no nuance. Some people commit suicide to punish a world that they think deserves it. Some people wish to spare other people suffering. They're very ill. Their care is costing an enormous amount. It's taking its toll emotionally. And some are adolescents who want to get out of suffering and they don't know. You know what I mean? So there's the nuances of, it seems to me only a Buddha is omniscient, and can know really what motivates someone. So that kind of cartoon-like pigeoning of people who do this is their fate. Yeah. It doesn't take into account the nuanced motivations. And
so, Simon, I'm hearing two questions from you. The first question is the tension between what appears to be a more traditional literal reading of the six realms and a sort of psychologized reading. And then the second is this issue of nuance, right? Right. So what I'm trying to communicate is that the psychologized account and the literal account are not contradictory. It's just viewed through two different cultural lenses. And, here's one of the challenges we face in the West. There were different kinds of Buddhism in Asia. For example, in Tibet, there's a Buddhism of the common people, which is very fundamentalist. It's based on devotion, simplifying, and then there's a very sophisticated Buddhism of a more educated elite. And here, we start with a very high level of education. And yet, we don't really have the time to replicate that in a traditional Buddhist context. If you read Patrul Rinpoche's words of My Perfect Teacher, the first read is a very fundamentalist read. It's a very simplified Buddhism. You have to read closely to see the sophistication underneath it. You have to give it a very sophisticated reading. And when you do that, you're not actually adding to it. What you're doing is pulling out the whole structure it's based on. So, the kind of person in Tibet who would be very aware of and concerned about that kind of nuance would very likely also have a more nuanced understanding of, a deeper understanding of Buddhism, in terms of a little bit of understanding of Madhyamaka, of Buddhist psychology and Abhidharma, and it's something missing in the West. Absolutely, of course, the world is nuanced, and this has to work in a nuanced way. Even in Patrul Rinpoche, there's a few places where he'll say, like when he talks about the 6 realms, and of course this is just a model, the range of mind is infinite. He leaves it sort of that one line at the end. And so that's actually why I'm trying to give you this psychologized example, because that's understood there. And what's also understood is a very deep critique of culture and worldview as something very contingent. You know, even if you have a little bit of an intellectual grasp, if we have, I mean, not you or anybody else, but if one has a sort of an intellectual grasp of emptiness, then it's all projection. So you understand that this, you know, it's interesting, in Dudjom Rinpoche's commentary here, he shortens the account of the hell realms to like just line items in a paragraph. It's like he knew we weren't going to relate to it that way. And I have, there's a wonderful Lama I know who has spent a lot of time in the West, who's really old school and teaches everybody words of My Perfect Teacher. And when I met him, he said, but I tell them not to read about the hell realms. I say it's way too advanced for you. He says after they've studied some basic Dharma subjects, Hinayana, Mahayana, for a few years and been doing their Ngondro for a while, he said, then read the chapter about the hell realms. We come from a different place. So your point is absolutely right. Of course it's more nuanced. There's a lot of different reasons to commit suicide. But there's still the habit of committing suicide. So the flavor of that karmic result is going to be different based on the circumstances. But there's still that essential truth of taking your own life is in there. And so that is a very dangerous habit.
If your motivation was compassion, doesn't that somehow mitigate?
Absolutely, yes. And so we have these classic allegorical, archetypal stories, like from the Buddha's previous life when he was on the ship full of pirates and he realized that there were the ship full of merchants and there were a couple of pirates, or one really bad pirate there who was going to take it over and kill all the merchants and steal all the wealth. And he decided to kill the pirate. This is discussed. Actually, if you look at these ancient tales that seem very cartoonish, They're actually quite sophisticated. If you look in Words of My Perfect Teacher, the story, the Buddha's previous life when he killed the pirate black spearman, or some of the stories about the bodhisattvas, if we really understand how to interpret that, it's trying to communicate a certain sophistication. The Buddha killed this pirate in order to save the lives of these other merchants, but also with the intention to benefit the pirate, with the thought, I'll take the karma of killing onto myself so that he doesn't earn the negative karma of killing, which would cause him to suffer so terribly. And so then he killed, but the fruit of his action was very positive. He didn't get the negative action, the negative karma from killing, because his intention was to benefit others and to take the negativity on himself. Does that make sense? If you think, I'm going to do it to benefit others because I'll get some good benefit for myself, it actually won't work that way. But if you really genuinely put yourself in the place, I know killing is a negative action. I'm willing to take the consequences of that to benefit others, and not just to benefit the people who are being protected, but to benefit the one who's being killed so they don't get that negative karma. If one could sincerely generate that motivation, that's a bodhisattva motivation. So that's what's being communicated by that story. It's very different from the idea of self-defense we have in the West, or just war that you see in Christianity. You have a good reason, therefore you did it. Your motivation is everything. Your motivation is everything. And that's the way they say, outside someone can look really bad, but we don't know. We shouldn't judge. People probably know the story of Tilopa and Naropa. And Tilopa was this beggar fisherman sitting by a stream, netting live fish and then impaling them on a stick and roasting them on a fire and eating them. And Naropa saw him and realized it was the guru, the Dakinis had prophesied to him and made prostrations and said, please accept me as your student. And Tilopa said, what are you talking about? I'm just a beggar. And Naropa said, please. He said, okay. And he took him and he tortured him for forever. The only teaching he got was that whack on the head with the shoe, and he got the complete realization of his guru transferred to him. But it looked like Tilopa was doing something really horrible. He had the power to transfer the consciousness of those fish to the pure realm. In other words, he had the power to take their karma. That's a negative karma, right? The interdependence of what he did, take the negative karma onto himself. But at a certain level of realization, karma is even an illusion. This is very dangerous, right? But this is why the higher teachings are often kept secret. But karma is empty too. But as long as we're caught in the delusion, we're accumulating it. And so we need to respect cause and effect. Someone like that, because of this profound knowledge, realization, integration with emptiness, they're taking that negative karma and transforming it, and that connection with that being, able to connect that being's mind stream with the Buddha nature. So that's what Tilopa was doing, and Naropa knew. He knew from his visions and the prophecies of the Dakinis, and something in the presence of Tilopa. So, your point is well taken. There's tremendous nuance, but what I'm trying to communicate to you as you read Dudjom Rinpoche's text, or as you read Words of My Perfect Teacher, don't get sucked into a cartoonish understanding of some of these old idioms. There's a very sophisticated message that's trying to be communicated, and Buddhism operates at lots of levels. If you're a simple person and you relate to it in a simple way, and that's what works for you, it's enough. It's all an illusion. Jetsun Milarepa said, once one has realized the profound meaning, the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha are like a lie. it's all a finger pointing at the moon, right? This isn't the moon. You can do it like this, you can do it like this, you can do it like this, you know. I go like this and somebody, you know, but somebody needs me to go like that. It doesn't matter anymore once you see the moon. And so there are 84,000 teachings for the 84,000 different kinds of mental propensities. And that actually kind of sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I mean, to a modern mind. What do you mean 84,000? Not 83,999? Give me a break. It's an ancient way of communicating. Whenever you see 84,000, huge amount, limitless. You know, the Buddha was teaching, how many monks were there? There were 500. There were 5,000. Did somebody really like have a clicker and count? So we have to be sophisticated readers. But there's a benefit to accepting the discipline of some of these old lists of things. So for example, in the traditional pedagogy, the traditional way of studying in the Nyingma lineage, you know, for the last century or so, almost everybody virtually memorizes the words of my perfect teacher. Almost every Lama I've met from Eastern Tibet can virtually just, you know, recite in hell realms and, you know, like that. Because as you get to more advanced practices, then it clicks. There's practices where you imagine being in one realm or another and you visualize yourself in that experience or going to that realm. And the memory of all the things you've studied clicks, and then it becomes creative. It starts with this little cartoon that you've memorized from the book, and then it becomes spontaneous. So there's a system here, and the Ngondro is a system. And sitting down every morning and doing our practice is a system. It's a discipline. And what are the 3 higher trainings in Buddhism? Discipline, concentration, and wisdom. If you don't do the discipline and the concentration, the wisdom doesn't happen. So anyway, so does that answer?
Yes.
Okay. We have a question here.
Thank you for your teachings. I'm a novice to the Ngondro practice. So my question is, you know, I've read through the inner, the outer, and there's so much that it creates a barrier to me practicing. And so when I practice, if I do shamatha to calm my mind, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to do the 4 outer, then the 3 inner, and I'm trying to go through all of it, and then I just get exhausted. I've lost all meaning of what I'm trying to generate, and so I don't know how, as a beginner, to approach this in a method that is welcoming and opening, rather than shutting me down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. So when you say you've gone through the book, you mean this long book?
I'm reading
Words of My Perfect Teacher.
And the Ngondro book, and then just the study in general.
Okay. So what you're doing is wonderful. Studying all that stuff. And I give you 2 ways to approach this problem. One way to approach this problem would be, when you do your practice, don't worry about everything in the book. The other way to approach the problem would say, this is better actually. For 2 or 3 weeks, don't look at the book. For 2 or 3 weeks, don't look at Words of My Perfect Teacher, don't look at any commentaries or explanations. Just pick up that little practice, right? And whatever comes out of you, when you think about impermanence, You don't have to like click on everything Patra Rinpoche said or Dudjom Rinpoche said. It's everything that's born is impermanent and bound to die. Whatever that means to you, that's okay. And similarly with the visualizations, you know, the refuge tree, when I get to the, you know, the refuge, how do I visualize? And when I get to the, whatever happens, just let it happen. Are you doing the whole practice from beginning to end?
Well, I would like to, but I get so exhausted
Okay.
after just getting into it that I don't know how to gently develop a beginning practice and then deepen it from there.
What I often tell people is play with it. In other words, this is a little unusual, but I've often, a number of people, this has really helped people. Instead of sitting down and doing a session of practice, sit down in your easy chair or on your... Actually, this word visualize is a lousy translation. Mikpa means to imagine something. And for a lot of people, it's really hard to bring a really clear visual image. Just imagine it's there, however that works for you. Dudjom Rinpoche used to tell people, this is right from, Chogyam Rinpoche told me this is right from Dudjom Rinpoche's mouth. If you can't visualize so clearly, just be confident that it's there. Imagine as best you can and be confident that it's there. That's enough. It's really enough. I think if we don't like get a really clear visual image, and visual image doesn't necessarily, all the visualizations for the Tersar in here are beautiful. And it's, I mean, the Pure Realm, it's visual, but these flowers that are bursting up everywhere, you smell the aroma of the flowers, you hear the songs of the birds and the deer expressing in song the self-arisen form of Dharma. It smells good, it sounds good, it looks good, it feels good. It's called, the foliage is called Demla Demshing. It's soft, and when you step on the grass, it bounces back, and when you push on the branches, they bounce back gently. You know, every sensory consciousness is involved in that. So actually, wait. Don't read Words of My Perfect Teacher. Don't read this yet. And just kind of like whatever comes to your mind when you do that short little Ngondro, just do it. And don't think, I screwed up, I didn't get it. Just we trust. And then when you feel more comfortable doing it, you go back. I mean, I didn't have this book when I started doing my Ngondro. This only came out recently, and I didn't speak Tibetan for the first several years I studied Dharma. And we had whatever teachings we had, and then we looked here and there, and, you know, it works. It works. But I think also we get kind of intimidated, like, am I breaking the rules, right? No. A friend of mine told me a story about one of the first 3 retreats that happened in the West. And the Lama was a retreat, they brought over this Lama who was a retreat master from Asia who had run retreats. And sometimes 3 retreats are group retreats. And he comes in and he says, okay, everybody needs to do, 400,000 Vajrasattvas, and then we'll start the teachings. Get going. And then he leaves. And people are going nuts. They're not sleeping, and everybody's doing their Vajrasattvas, and everybody's getting sick. And he comes back a week or 2 later to check on people, and he goes, I think I made a mistake. The Tibetans are sometimes so relaxed. So his experience was he really needed to tighten people up, you know? And he was trying to push them at the beginning of the retreat, so they weren't, he was used to a different, you know, a much more relaxed attitude. And the Westerners were so uptight to do it. It didn't work. We get really uptight. We need to relax. And so, I mean, your Ngondro should really feel good. When we talk about the 6 perfections, right, one of them is diligence. Diligence is another lousy translation. Ngondro means enthusiasm, joy in doing virtue. And then Ngondro should be a joyous experience. I mean, devotion should feel good. And when we do the Guru Yoga and the light is coming down, it's okay to imagine, even if you don't feel blissed out instantly, it's okay to imagine that light is filled with joy and bliss. And as it dissolves into you, it's warm and rich, like, you know, warm milk and honey dissolving into you, and it feels so good. All the blessings of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is coming down into you. And you might start feeling good, and it's okay. You know, you're supposed to enjoy this. You know, it's not supposed to make you feel bad. And yeah. And you can use the creativity of your own mind. And that's very important. In Vajrayana practice, you know, the book or the manual, it says you visualize like this, and you do this, and you do that. And then, you know, the hand is holding this, and it's here. But, I mean, do you think Avalokiteshvara is frozen like a statue and doesn't move? I mean, do you think the love of all the Buddhas is frozen and doesn't move? Machik Troma Nam was in the dancing posture. I mean, is that a dance if she's frozen like stone? It's alive. So you just let it wake up. It won't happen all at once. But you read in the book and it says, you know, this is red and this hand is this. And so you visualize like that. But your mind is naturally creative, and that's going to happen. That's good. That's okay. The light comes down, you know. Is it particles of light? Are they this size? Are they shaped like seed syllables or vajras? Or whatever happens, that's okay, right? The creativity of your own mind is going to come out. It can't contradict the guidelines you're given in your practice, but there's a lot of space in there. What's in the book is a starting point for you to get going. So you play with it. Yeah. Any other questions?
So I'm very new to the Ngondro practice, and I have a good, I mean, I think I have a decent understanding of what the words and the visualization part of that, but the part for me that's difficult to understand is how do I apply this on a day-to-day basis? And that, it may just be my ignorance of, I mean, I understand that a lot of it has to do, you know, the prostrations is a lot of, you know, separating yourself out of that ego and the idea of self, but those visualizations, the words that you say, how do I drive that on a daily basis?
In other words, how do you integrate it into the rest of your life after you get off the cushion?
Exactly.
Okay, that's a great question. Because if you do that, you'll get enlightened and you'll get out of samsara. And if you don't, you won't. Sitting for an hour or two in the morning and doing your practice is really, really good. But if it stops there, you're going to have to come back and do it again. If you really want to break the chain of samsara, then your life becomes your practice. And so, first of all, some kind of structured formal practice in the morning, first thing in the morning when you wake up, is really important. When we go from the sleep state to the waking state, it's kind of like booting up a computer. There's a change of consciousness. You know, when a computer boots up, the first software that loads in is in high memory. It runs faster than the stuff that loads in later. So, in a similar way, that transition from when we wake up and just before we go to sleep are really fertile, rich opportunities for practice. Because the practice is about the effect it has on our mind. In a small way, it's just like when we die, it's a tremendous opportunity. That's like the final exam for a yogi, is when you die. So, when we wake up in the morning, if we can create a space where we won't be disturbed, you know, and if we have partners, we have to be a little creative about it. If you sleep alone, you can just sit up in bed and practice, although it's usually a little soft. For most beginners, it's better to, you have like a corner of your bedroom or a practice room or something. And if you have a partner or a family, they need to know, you know, whatever your timing is. If you have to leave for work at 7 and be in the kitchen at 6:15, but they know until you come into the kitchen at 6:15, they don't have anything to say to you, or they're in big trouble. And you've got your 15 minutes, half an hour, hour, two, whatever it is, it's your time, it's your space. Unless there's a nuclear war or somebody needs to go to the emergency room, nobody disturbs you. And you get up, and before you start going through the list of things you need to do during the day, you just sit and practice. Now, for some of us, it's hard to get up in the morning, wash your face a little bit. Maybe you take a shower and wash up and get ready if that's what you do, if you need to. But ideally, with as little intervening activity as possible from waking up, you go straight to your practice. And as you get used to this, you just kind of like sit up into your practice. But as a beginner, it may be helpful. You go, take your shower, shave, and then you just sit down on your cushion. And then you do your practice. And I'll talk more about this next Saturday, but when we do our Ngondro practice, it's always mixed with our meditation practice. It's not separate. They help each other. There's an interdependence. And then even if you only have 10, 15 minutes to whip through your Ngondro, you've done the whole thing in the beginning of the day. Then we find ways to bring our practice into our daily life. And of course, the main practice is the Guru Yoga. And the main practice is the Guru Yoga. And so, Guru Yoga means union with the Guru. Ultimate Guru is the nature of your mind. Inner Guru, according to this practice, is Guru Padmasambhava. Outer Guru is Chögyam Rinpoche, this person you met who's bringing the lineage to you. And so, throughout the day, you connect with the Guru. You connect with the Guru, Guru Yoga. And so it's described in some detail at the end of the Guru Yoga chapter in this book. You know, if you're sitting in the car, be a little careful driving and practicing. You don't be distracted. It's a little dangerous. My wife hates it. I shouldn't, but I hold my rosary when I drive. Probably better not to do that. It's better than a cell phone anyway. But even if you don't hold the rosary, you can visualize. You're walking down the street, much safer. Visualize Guru Rinpoche above your head, or visualize Guru Rinpoche to your right in the sky as you're doing a circumambulation. When you're eating, visualize Guru Rinpoche in your throat, and the food is an offering to Guru Rinpoche. You're visualizing the inner Guru. You can also visualize Guru Rinpoche, the inner Guru, in the space in front. Let's say you have just a minute or two break. You visualize Guru Padmasambhava, just like in the Guru Yoga, in the sky in front. And then you take the four empowerments from the Om in his forehead, white light comes down into an Om in your forehead. From the Ah in his throat, red light to an Ah in your throat. From the Hung in his heart, blue light to the Hung in your heart. And then from his heart, a five-color orb of light, the essence of the Buddha mind of all the Buddhas of the past, present, future, come in and dissolve into your heart. And then Guru Padmasambhava dissolves into a mass of light and dissolves into you. And just let go. Even you only have 30 seconds to do that. It's so beneficial. It's the ultimate practice. So many advanced practitioners, I've heard it from so many great lamas over it. The ultimate practice, pray to the Guru, take the four empowerments, let be. And then you begin to taste the union with the ultimate Guru, with the secret Guru.
So that visualization and then the absorption, is that... So the visualization and the absorption of that, the next step of that, is that you reconnecting with your Buddha nature? Is that saying, okay, hey, I am, deep down inside, buried under a couple things, is that nature? And is that what the point of that visualization? Because, you do the visualization here, and like you're talking about on a day-by-day basis throughout the day, visualizing that and then absorbing that. But what is that the connection to the Buddha nature?
Yeah. You are connected to the Buddha nature right now. As it is, but not seeing it, that's a sentient being. As it is, and seeing it, that's a Buddha. But as it is doesn't change. So the whole Vajrayana principle is that we think this is real, and we're doing this little children's game of imagining, lights and sounds and colors and Guru Padmasambhava and Troma and Tara and Avalokiteshvara. But that's the way it really is. And so at the beginning, it's a pretend, because we're so attached, we're sure we're right. But you begin to taste it. And then all of ego's confidence begins to shake up. And then you need some discipline. You need some inspiration, right? But then it comes out of you. At that level of the way things really are, there's no you, there's no me. It's all the Guru. It's all the Buddha. But we have this illusion of separateness. Sometimes it's called, it's like we're a leak. We've leaked out of Buddha nature into this illusion of a little drop. And so the Ngondro, the Guru Yoga, is the essence of the Vajrayana. If you do creation stage Devata practice, the essence of it is the Guru Yoga. If you do the yogas of the winds and the channels and the drops and all that physical yogas and breathing, the essence of it is the Guru Yoga. If you do Mahamudra, the essence of it is the Guru Yoga. If you do Dzogpa Chenpo, the essence of it is the Guru Yoga. So that's there in the Ngondro. And so if you've done your formal practice in the morning, then you get to play. Right? All day you get to play. You get to remind yourself that this is all a dream. I mean, it really, sometimes it seems like such a big deal, but it's an illusion. And, you get to play. And people are different practitioners. Some Ngondro practitioners, they just do Guru Yoga. Some people become Vajrasattva practitioners. After you've done a few 100,000 of this and that and the other, they just do lots of Vajrasattva. Soksi Rinpoche had one monk who did 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras 150 times. Actually, he had two. Two of them, 150 times. Patra Rinpoche had one student who did it 200 times. And a lot who did it 100 times. So the numbers game, it kind of... we can trick our ego into helping us go in the right direction, right? So we're running out of time. I want to say a little bit about devotion and a little bit about... are there any more questions? Okay, because I could really get carried away and keep people too long, and I'm not supposed to. For most people in this room, this is probably not hard or you wouldn't be here. But still, for us as Westerners, devotion, faith and devotion are almost bad words in our culture. In some sense. And I want to unpack those words a little bit. Faith, they're different words in Tibetan. Faith is tepa, and devotion is mugu. And so faith, you cannot live your life without faith. If you didn't have faith that when you stepped out of bed, the floor would be there to support your foot, you couldn't step out of bed. It's a kind of faith. What is faith? Faith has two aspects, the way it's understood in our tradition. Trust and inspiration. Without trust, inspiration is not possible. So you trust that the floor is there, and you feel motivated to get up and stand up. Let me give you another example of faith, driving on the highway. You take someone who hasn't driven until they're 40 years old and put them behind the wheel of a car at 60 miles an hour. It's an utterly terrifying experience, and we don't even think about it, right? We know, we trust. Our body is going to do it. Our mind, eyes, body is just trained. We don't even think about it. We have faith. But it is a kind of faith, because sometimes it doesn't work, and there's a problem when we're driving the car, right? So when we say faith in Buddhism, we're talking about trust combined with inspiration. We're not talking... The faith in modern English almost implies belief without an adequate basis. Right? That's the way we think of the word in English. And that has absolutely nothing to do with faith in Buddhism. The Buddha said, don't simply believe and trust my teachings out of your veneration. It was the last thing he told his disciples before he died. Don't simply believe and trust my teachings out of your veneration for me. Test what I have taught you like a goldsmith tests gold by crushing it and burning it and cutting it. And only if it passes the test, then you should trust it. Buddhism is really very scientific. It really is. Nobody's telling you just believe this. If you do the Ngondro right, you're going to start to have a different experience of yourself. I use that word right. If you do the Ngondro with enthusiasm, you're going to start to experience your world differently and your life differently. And that will fill you up. If it doesn't, you're never going to stick with this, right? Just because you should. So that trust and that inspiration, that's faith. And I'll give a more detailed teaching next week. There's 4 kinds of faith, but I don't want to keep you late. And then mugu, devotion. Mipa is yearning or longing. And gupa is respect. Yearning, longing is actually, what do we yearn for? What do we long for? More than anything else. It's our basic goodness. Basic goodness. Basic sanity. Basic joy. We describe the primordial Buddha as Kuntu Zangpo, totally good. Good in every way. That's what we want. It's what every living thing wants. It's inside us. And so that's that yearning. And so this whole, what is the Guru? The Guru is a manifestation of that. That is ultimate Guru. And then relying on a human Guru, it's a way of training. It's the way, the Guru actually doesn't give us anything except for an opportunity to connect with our basic sanity. And yet somehow what he does give us is a connection with these teachings and this lineage. It's funny, we don't get something and we do. We have it to begin with, but by tasting the Guru's Buddha nature, it wakes up our own Buddha nature. So this starts in a kind of artificial way, where we imagine the Guru as the manifestation of the Buddha. And that's really scary in our culture too. It's like giving up a lot of power, right? But I think you should approach the whole Vajrayana connection and relationship with the Guru. It's a relationship. Whether you're talking about meeting a friend, whether you're talking about a partner, a spouse, that relationship develops over time. The relationship you have with your spouse after 30 years didn't come fully formed on the day you met. And so this relationship with the Guru is not something that's given to us absolutely. We create it. And so there's a formal practice, and in this formal practice, we're relating to the Guru as Guru Padmasambhava. And in outer life, we're also relating to the Guru. Mu-gu, longing and respect. And that respect comes from an appreciation of what we get. And the deal between a Guru and a disciple, since time immemorial, is that the Guru will do whatever it takes to wake up the disciple. That's the deal. That's what you sign on for. And of course, we have this yearning, longing, we want to wake up, but we kind of don't, right? Ego doesn't want the rug pulled out from under it. So this is a complicated relationship. So I think this is something, but I don't think we have to have it mastered to start our Ngondro. But I do think we have to go in with open eyes to understand there's a relationship with the outer guru, with the inner guru, with the secret guru. And that's a relationship that we're going to develop with our practice in daily life. Relationship with our practice in daily life, relationship with the guru. I better stop. So thank you all for coming. Let's dedicate the merit. Always, always. This is something you can do in your daily life. Always. Whatever you do. If you give one piece of food to an animal, if you give $1 to a beggar, if you have a good thought, you apply the 3 sacred bonds, Dampasum. First, you do it with a bodhicitta intention. Whatever you do, intention, whatever positive virtue there is in this act, may it benefit all beings and be the cause to lead them to enlightenment. And then when you do it, you remember emptiness. Whatever you're doing, it's a dream, it's an illusion. And then when you're done, the 3rd bond is to dedicate the merit. By this virtue, may all beings gain enlightenment. You can be walking down the street, and when you're driving in traffic and you just stop and let someone cut you off and go because they're in a hurry, and don't get angry about it, but think, wow, I had a chance to do something nice for someone. By that virtue, may all beings get enlightened. That's your Dharma practice. There's tremendous merit in that. You can practice. You can practice with traffic. You can practice with your relationships. Spouses are great. They push us, right? So apply the 3 perfect bonds. That's why always we dedicate the merit, whatever we do. I'm going to need one of those because I don't have the English memorized. Do we have a piece of, or is it in here?
It's broken up in there.
Okay. Does everybody know these prayers? In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly arise. In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly arise. In the world in general, and in this nation, may not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtuous qualities, merit, and prosperity greatly increase, and may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly arise. By this merit, may all beings gain omniscience, and thus defeat neurosis and negative actions, which are the enemies. From the turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may all beings be liberated.